What do I do as a father? Well, the first thing, and probably the most important thing that I thought of, was protection, which is to protect my children, protect my 3 daughters, try and make sure that I'm there to look out for them and do whatever is necessary to make sure they're safe. Now, that's fine when they're small, babies in arms, when you can't let them go out of your sight for any sort of moment, but then they grow up, and it's not so easy then, when they start wandering off and going their own way. But, you've got to give them a little bit of movement and freedom. But unfortunately, when they get to the age of 18, they decide to have too much and decide that they're going to Zante. And you think, oh no, right, I can't look over them then, so I'll have to go for prayer and faith. So that's what I put that down to now for next week, next Sunday, when Lara decides she's going to Zante for a week. Then it'll be down to prayer, faith, and trust that God will be there with her and looking over her, and that she will basically look to her roots, know where she's come from, and be a good girl, and God look after her at the same time. So that's the protection part of it. And I thought, right, okay, let's carry on with the P line, and we'll go for, right, so we've got, providing. Right, so provide, means I've got to go to work every day to put the food on the table for them, to make sure that we give them nourishment. Nourishment, perhaps that comes down to the Bible and faith as well. So, we try to give them the food that they need, the house, the living style that is required, and, to help them to grow naturally, I suppose, in a normal sort of way. And with that, we give them good food, and we try to encourage them in their faith. And, Anita's probably a little bit better than us at me, but she sort of nags a little bit more than me as well. But, to sort of make sure that they are trying to interact with God, and just sort of making sure that they are praying and, studying their Bible a little bit, or reading a little bit of the Bible, and going, make sure that they're treading the right path as much as we can. And I know that, that is an individual's choice. So from that point, we can only encourage them, which is what we try to do. And then for the third point, I was struggling. I thought, well, can I carry on with a P? And I was sort of, I disappeared for an hour last night, and he said, where's he gone now? And I was there sort of thinking and praying, and I'm struggling here. But then, after prayer, I come up with partnership. Because family life is about a partnership. We give them these things. We give them love. We give them care. We give them, nourishment for their life. But in reward for that, we do get their love back. We get friendship. We get respect, which is something that you want from your children. And I'm not saying, we don't give hard and fast guidelines. We try to be, give them the freedom to move and the freedom to make their own choices. But, through that, we get respect back, because they've never pushed the boundaries to an extent where they've sort of crossed the lines. And for that, I'm thankful to God, because He, I believe, is leading our children. And I know they're going to have wobbles on the way, and they will sort of turn one way or do something else. But I'm sure that through this, through our encouragement and through God's calling, that they will continue to walk with Him. And that's our open prayer anyhow. And that's fathership for me anyhow. So that's it. Thanks, Paul.
Well done, Kevin. That was brilliant. There you are. 3 Ps. Protection, provision, and partnership. There you go. That's a template for being a dad. We all like a form and a template and a way to go. That was fantastic. Well done. Really good. What I want to talk about this morning, I've got, actually, while you're on a roll, I've got a short 5-pointer here. Do you want to do that as well? What I want to talk about, and it's not just to the fathers here, the men, it's to everybody really, is about faith. It's about the kind of faith we have to where we struggle with life's crises. And I'm basing it around a story in John 4. If you want to turn to your Bibles. On the Pew Bibles, I think it's page 1120. It's about Jesus healing the official's son. Now, an official could be a nobleman, it's someone to do with the government. John chapter 4, and it's verse 43. After the 2 days he left for Galilee. Now Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honour in his own country. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, for they also had been there. Once more he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine. And there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. Unless you people see miraculous signs and wonders, Jesus told him, you will never believe. The royal official said, Sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus replied, you may go. Your son will live. The man took Jesus at his word and departed. While he was still on the way, his servants met him with the news that his son was living. When he inquired as to the time when his son got better, they said to him, the fever left him yesterday at the 7th hour. Then the father realized that this was the exact time at which Jesus had said to him, your son will live. So he and all his household believed. And this was the second miraculous sign that Jesus performed, having come from Judea to Galilee. I'm a little bit remiss, Kevin, because I was a little present for the dad who goes to the trial. And that's a thank you to you. But this is a story about faith. It's about faith being a dad. It's all right. This is not all the pages of the sermon. It's just, I can have it in front of me. I'm not fiddling with papers. This is my kind of little red book that I have in my briefcase at work. It's got all the really stuff I might need to look up at any time of the day. So, it's a story about faith. And I want to talk about faith at different aspects and different levels. Now, if you've ever watched your son or daughter be sick, be really ill, struggle, you'll probably understand a little bit about what this official was going through. We don't know a lot about him. We don't know whether he was, high up in the government, whether he was wealthy or whatever. But some of the scholars think he was a member of the royal family of Herod Antipas. So he had servants, so he presumed he was fairly wealthy. But if you cut to the chase, you cut all through that, cut through all the materialism, all the power, his position in society. Here's the heart of the matter. This official was also a dad. And more than that, his son was sick. So sick that he was really scared he was going to die. And his wealth and his rank became completely secondary when his child was sick. And he only had one thought, well, how's my son going to get better? And this is a great story about the different levels of faith we can have. And maybe if you're a dad, if you're a father, you can think about this in terms of your children as we go through this. But the first level of faith, I think, for a lot of people, and sometimes they don't know what they've got faith in, is this almost like this miracle-seeking faith. The faith that says, "Oh, God, somewhere, I need a miracle. I need help. I need you to do something." But that's it. It's almost a saying as though, well, you know, I'll have faith in you if you do something really good for me. You know, please do something for me, and that's basically the level at which this faith is on. And I've been trying to think of the words how to put this, because this is slightly complex, but it's the truth is that if we actually we're at that first level of faith, and we're always waiting for the next miracle, our faith is only as strong as the next miracle that happens. If that makes sense to you. In other words, you know, oh great, something happened to me. You know, God, you did something really special for me. You know, my son was healed, etc., etc. And then, get on with life now, and kind of drift away. And your faith sort of goes up, and then it starts to come down again. And this is an interesting. When this chap turns up, and you can imagine him sort of throwing himself down on his knees. Lord, please come and heal my son. Please come and heal my son. He is dying. It's interesting, Jesus' response, because Jesus has seen this level of faith with lots of the people around him. All they want to see from him is a miracle. They want to see him fix a problem. That's all they want from him. So how does he handle this official? Well, he answers him in kind of the plural to start with. And I'll use my living version because it's quite direct. And he basically, what he does, he addresses the crowd. And he says to this, must I do miraculous signs and wonders before you people will believe in me? No, he's not talking directly to the dad. He's talking to everybody. He's saying to them, is this all you expect from me? That I do miracles for you? Is that it? So what's wrong with that kind of level of faith? What's the problem with it, if that's just where you're at in your faith? Well, the problem is it can almost become a way of just testing God all the time. Oh, well, I'll believe in you if you do one thing after another, after another, after another for me. And if you don't really understand who Jesus is, and you don't really understand that he's the Son of God, if you don't really understand everything he's done, then sometimes we can take the attitude of faith into faith in other people. You know, faith in doctors, faith in people around you, and get deceived. Faith in people with ideas that are not quite right. You know, to have faith in someone who can give you a miracle. And I think this is one of the things that Jesus was a bit cross about, to be honest. Was at the time, lots of people wanted him to do a miracle. And he said, well, I can do a miracle, but what are you going to do about believing in me? And we all know the warnings about sort of charlatans and false prophets and people coming and false Christs and with a false message and deceiving people. And the Bible talks about even deceiving the elect, if that were possible. But the reality is that that level of faith, just waiting for the next miracle, is never enough. Because human nature is if something really good happens to us, we just want another one. If you get one pay rise, you just want another one. If you want a really good telly, and then the next best telly comes along, you just want the next best telly. That's kind of what we're like as people. So just having that level of faith, expecting miracles all the time, is not enough. Because faith is never where you are, but who you turn to, isn't it? If you think about this situation, this man was 20 miles away from home. And he asked Jesus to save his son. And Jesus did. And his home was probably the equivalent of between here and Monmouth. So that's the first level of faith, which is kind of, well, you know, prove to me you're God by doing a miracle. You know, and you can imagine the crowds following Jesus in his early days when he was starting to do these things. You know, oh wow, he's a star. That was the problem when he went back to when he went back to Nazareth, because before they didn't like him. They said, oh, he's just one of our lads who's grown up on our streets. Then all of a sudden he goes away and starts becoming famous, and he comes back and he's a real star. I think, oh wow, he can do miracles, and he's one of us. Isn't he great? Yeah, he's one of us. I'm a Nazarene as well, just like him. But that wasn't enough, as Jesus clearly said. Must I do miraculous signs and wonders before you people, before you believe in me? And when we go through the crises, dads, are we expecting, if God doesn't do something for us, for our children, does that change the way we think about him? Or believe in him? Or believe in his ultimate end purpose for our lives and the lives of our children and our wives and families? So ask yourself that question. The second level can move on a little bit. It can be a little bit casual, sort of a casual kind of faith, you know. Coming to church and praying and worshipping is a nice little respite. It feels good, you know. You know, it's great. Even though my little Ben, as I call him, wouldn't jump up and down when we did the jumping up and down, you know, because they do get a bit nervous out the front. And I've never really got to the bottom of why, but they do. You know, coming to church and the really nice things about church, the good things about church, is a nice little break from, I'm going to go to work tomorrow morning, my bosses are going to have a real go at me. Or, you know, I've got to do something else on Monday morning, which is not going to be that great. So, you know, great, come to church, have a nice time. I'm with my friends and so on and so forth. But as several people from this place have constantly said, it's not, and Jackie mentioned it this morning, it's not just what happens here, it's what happens when you go out the door. What happens on Monday morning? What happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday as well? So if you've got a bit of a casual faith, then what really matters to Jesus sometimes ends up on the fringes of your life from a Monday to a Saturday. But you know, with the official son, all that came crashing down and came crashing in, didn't it? Because it's not, the Bible doesn't tell us what this official's life and faith was like before. But all of his normal sort of weekly schedule, the way he expected things to happen, you know, how he expected life to be, you know, he got servants and so on. All of that came crashing in, didn't it? Life came crashing in when his son was lying on that bed close to death. And what happened? Well, everything changed. Everything changed, and he said, I want my son to get better. Who am I going to go to? So he goes to Jesus. Because he may have heard a bit about him. He may have heard that he'd done some miracles. He was going back to Nazareth, and he was a star in the local community because he had done big things in the temple in Jerusalem. And he sort of made quite an impact, as you'd expect the Son of God to do. So Jesus said what he says. He says, must I do miraculous signs and wonders before you people believe in me? To the crowd. You can imagine it, can't you? Sort of raise his voice, they can hear him. So what does the dad say? Well, I don't know anything about what the other people are thinking or doing or what signs they're demanding. I just want my son to get well. Can you help me? And look at the words that the father's using. Because when the father speaks, his words change. He says, my little boy is dying. Because he's desperate. And a desperate faith is a bit better than a casual faith. But on a certain level, just being desperate about something all the time can be dangerous. Because when we turn to people and we're desperate for something to happen, sometimes they let us down. doctors and nurses are great, but if you are a certain parent in Staffordshire, you probably might not believe that. So there's this act of desperation all the time, that if your faith is, well, something's gone so badly wrong and I'm now desperate. The great thing about this official was that he turned to Jesus. He went to the right place. But the point about this is that our faith is only as good as its object. Because if we have desperate faith, and the people we have desperate faith in let us down, then that's going to disappoint us. And that's sometimes a really, really hard lesson. But faith is not just about how strong you feel or how emotional you are. It's always about trusting in the right person. And the official turned to Jesus. He probably rode this 20 miles across Galilee to find him. They didn't have iPhones in those days and sat-navs. He probably went out riding and thought, well, he's kind of somewhere over there. That's kind of somewhere where Nazareth is. I'll just go over there and let's see if we can find him. Come, bring some of my servants, come with me, and we'll, some can go up the front and sort of see if you can spot a crowd and stuff like that. But he actually went looking for him. But the important thing was he went to Jesus. Which takes us to this third aspect of faith. So it's getting better, all right? It's for the official, it's getting better. This desperate dad went to the right person. How did he do that? Well, he put his faith into action. He knew, from what he'd heard, that Jesus could save his son. So I'm going to put my faith into action, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to talk to this Jesus, and I'm going to listen to what he says, and I'm going to trust him. Now, 20 miles away from what he's heard about Jesus, he's not going to be emotional and have lots of tingly feelings about it. It's just objective to him. Jesus might be able to save my son. So what he did, he went to Jesus, and he pleaded his case. He said, Lord, please come now before my little boy dies. So he went to Jesus, he pleaded his case, and then he listened intently to what Jesus was about to say to him. As you would do if your little boy is on his deathbed. And then he took Jesus at his word. So he put his faith into action. He went to Jesus. And Jesus turned to him and said, you may go. Your son will live. And then that man in faith took Jesus at his word and left. As it says in verse 50, and the man believed Jesus' word and started home. Because faith takes God at its word and obeys what God says. That's what faith is. That's what faith does. He took Jesus at his word. Jesus said, your son will live. Go. That's exactly what he did. But the father's story doesn't end here, and this is kind of the fourth level. See, Kevin, you could have done this. He takes Jesus at his word, doesn't he? And he goes. But a little later, something really interesting happens on the way home. Well, on his way home, some of his servants met him with the news that his son was alive and well. He asked them when the boy had begun to feel better, and they replied, yesterday afternoon at 1 o'clock, his fever suddenly disappeared. There's something going on in this dad's mind here. It's almost like, sometimes when God does something really good for us in our lives, and sometimes they just have a check. Yeah, and that happened. And so when did Jesus say that? And when did someone in church who are praying with say that to me? And how does that all impact on what's just happened? And what time did they say it? You can imagine sort of the thought process going through his... Because this official's probably got to manage quite a lot of stuff. So he probably sort of thinks through these things sort of every day. So on the way home, he asked about the timing. And this 7th hour in that city is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The very time that Jesus had said his son was healed. So was it coincidence? We see this dad's faith had moved on from just expecting a miracle and then just expecting the next miracle and then expecting the next thing and never really moving on from, just waiting for a miracle. He'd gone past the casual. Well, it was really good sort of seeing the crowd and being in this crowd and seeing the energy around Jesus and so on and so forth. A bit like being in church in a way. He'd had the meeting with Jesus, he'd prayed and he'd gone away in faith because Jesus said his son was ill, was going to be better. And his son was going to be okay. And at that point he could have thought, 1 o'clock, coincidence. But what the Father had been through with Jesus showed him it was a lot more than a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence. And there's an interesting thing it says here, which I wanted to cover because some of you, if you read this, might ask the question about faith. Sorry, next page. Some of the translations say at that point the Father believed. And you have to ask the question, didn't he believe in Jesus when he went there in the first place? When he went to see him? Well, the Father kind of believed in someone who could do a miracle at that time because of what he'd heard. This was like the first sort of basic level of believing in God. But the point of this is when he heard the news that his son had got better exactly at 1 o'clock when Jesus said, "Go, your son will live." His faith progressed to the next level. Isn't it wonderful when we sometimes realise God has done a wonderful thing in our lives? What a boost to our faith it is. Our faith progresses. Because if our faith then moves to the next place where we can say, well, yeah, God did that, and I know he can do certain other things, can't he? So his faith progressed. First he came out of desperation. Then he believed in a specific event or a specific power that Jesus had to do something. But once he understood who Jesus really was, his faith took on a new dimension. And at that point, I think he really understood who Jesus was. Because it's one thing to believe in Jesus as your answer to your prayers if you're desperate or you just want him to help you in emergencies. It's altogether another thing to believe that Jesus is the Lord of your life and he's worthy of following and obeying all of the time. And this is what I mean about progression of faith. And you can see it in the official story. Because at that point, when he'd heard that his son was healed at 1 o'clock, and he believed, he really believed in Jesus, who Jesus was. At that point, you could say he was ready to be baptized. And there remains one other fact about the official that takes it to the next level. So you've got just looking for a miracle. There's lots of songs about that. Desperation, casual faith, an important progression into believing that Jesus really is who he is. The next step is it becomes contagious. What does it say in his family? Now, I think the Bible kind of tries to summarize things at times. But it says here, and the officer and his entire household believed in Jesus. In other words, what had happened to the officer, to the official, to this man, was contagious for the rest of his family. He not only believed personally, but his family followed. And sometimes it's a bit of a responsibility, guys. But often, as there's a little sort of organisation that I'm a member of. This is not their stuff, but it's Christian Vision for Men did a survey some time ago. And I've said this before, haven't I, John? There's something actually very special and the effect on a family if the father is converted to believe in Jesus. And far more of the rest of the family follow for some reason than if it's not the father. You know, it's great if we become Christians through, you know, our kids come into church and we see and we come along and it's terrific. There's something very special for a family when the father is converted. Very special and very powerful. Maybe in our society now it's because sometimes dads can be either brilliant or basically just downright awful. Maybe it's something about the position of a father. Maybe it's something God ordained about families, about having a father in the family. But there's something very special about the father being a Christian. And at this point, the official's family followed and believed. So you've got this spreading the word kind of thing at the end. And sometimes, you know, that's not guaranteed. Let's be honest, guys, it's not guaranteed. You know, it was really interesting for me listening to Kevin. You know, we're praying about Zanti. Because this is kind of the first kind of test, isn't it? When your teenage daughter wants to go off and have a good time with her mates on some hot island somewhere and be up late at night and everything else. Well, it is. You know, goodness, you've all seen reality TV. You know, we're not stupid, are we? But there's, you know, at that point, we don't have that kind of control, really, over our children's actions and decisions, because sometimes they're stupid. You know, I can see it in my two now. You can see the different personalities starting to come. We know who's going to be more stupid than the other. And it's you know, and, you know, we'll kind of cope with it when we come. And I've said before from here, you know, there's some things in order to guide, sometimes you have to guide kind of firmly but gently, don't you? And one of mine needs a bit more guidance than the other at the moment. But the rub of this is, if you're a dad, but if you're a parent, that the more genuine, the more sincere, and the more personal your faith is, the better the chances that your children are going to understand it and come to it as well. Not all the time, and it's not your fault if it doesn't happen. You know, sometimes you can try really hard. You know, I know some of you have got children who've grown up and you'll think, oh, you know, I wish that hadn't happened. Or, you know, don't blame yourself. You know, sometimes stuff happens for reasons, and sometimes our children go on longer journeys. They sometimes take the long way round, don't they? But if you're hypocritical, if you're inconsistent, if your lifestyle is compromising, you know, if you compromise and really show that in your actions, actually your faith is very shallow. That's going to have little appeal to your kids, and they won't really take it as an example to be followed. And just to finish, this desperate father, this official, got more than he bargained for, didn't he? Because he thought, I need a miracle. There isn't a hospital that can save my son. This man, Jesus, might be able to. And he came back a Christian, came back believing. Some scholars take a view that it's kind of someone called Manaen who appears a bit later on in Scriptures as a friend or supporter of Barnabas or whatever, but that's only kind of what they think, so, you know, there's no facts about that. So his son not only lived, but he became a believer in Jesus. And sometimes, you know, Jesus does these miraculous signs in the very areas of our lives where we can sometimes feel completely powerless. Kevin and Anita will feel completely powerless next week. And Anita will be standing there by the front door ready for when she comes home. And there'll be an inquest. What have you been up to? And Kevin will be standing there thinking, I'd like to look at her phone texts. And then Laura will come in and she'll have a debrief. And, Mum will be there with her arms crossed. Yeah, what have you been up to? Tell me. Look me in the eye. Tell me. And so, and when we're when we're the most powerless, you know, we need our Saviour, don't we? And who of you doesn't desperately want your children to know who Jesus really is, to know his life-saving power, to actually understand that he really is very, very real? But you know, the desperate faith is never enough. Real faith is that desperation turning to the right source for help, which is the Lord. And we need to know that the only source of life and eternity is Jesus Christ. If you don't know that this morning, please talk to someone here and ask them about it, because it's true. But we must do what the official did and go beyond that. Dads, you need to turn and need to be obedient, trusting obedience to God. And it's got to be personal, and it's got to be contagious for the people around you. So have a think about it. Have a think about where you are. Are you expecting a miracle? Are you kind of a bit casual? Are you kind of, well, a bit desperate because you're actually paddling a lot underneath because there's something very serious going on in your life and you don't know how to deal with it? Who are you going to turn to? Well, Jesus can step right into that situation and turn it completely around, like he did with the official son. And you know, it might just do your faith an awful lot of good, just like he did with the official.